Hello, my name is Biba Vaimana, and I have the pleasure today to be with Sherif Nasser, Assistant Professor of Marketing, to speak about his new research. Professor Nasser, thank you so much for being here. May we start with, why is your research so groundbreaking or breakthrough?
One of our big findings, or what makes this paper new, is that we show that actually the traditional wisdom was that firms, when they're competing, they will choose, if they have the option, they will choose to constrain their outputs because that reduces price competition afterwards. And what we find is actually when you expand your analysis and look at it from more angles, you find that that's not the case, that you can find cases where firms will actually choose, even if the firms are symmetric and everything is the same, you will find that one firm will choose to constrain its outputs while other firms will not choose to constrain their outputs. And I think that's kind of the new thing that we are saying.
In your paper, you talked about different levels of product differentiation, high levels to intermediate to low levels. Do you mind explaining what these different levels mean and how they impact industries and firms?
I'll give you three examples. The first is an example where there is really no product differentiation, and you can think of those as commodities. So if you're buying steel, or you're buying oil, crude oil, and so on, there is a specific kind of steel, and it doesn't matter where you buy it, which brand, which company. So there is no differentiation. You're going to go with the lowest price, and that's it, because all the products are the same. So that's kind of the extreme case of no differentiation. Now, you can look at another case of kind of low product differentiation, where there is some, but not a lot, would be an example of Coke versus Pepsi, for example. And you see, okay, so some people like Coke more than Pepsi, some people like Pepsi more than Coke, but at the end of the day, if Pepsi reduces its price by, let's say, 5, 10 cents, then it will take a lot of market share away from Coke, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why you watch Coke and Pepsi get into these price wars, because the differentiation levels are not so high. Then I can give you another example of high product differentiation, and you can look at it as Mercedes versus BMW. So Mercedes versus BMW, they're both high-end cars, but at the end of the day, the people who like BMW, maybe we can call them people who like performance more, will like BMW, and then the people that like Mercedes, maybe we call them luxury-oriented, they like Mercedes. Now, if BMW starts reducing its price, yes, it will get a little bit of Mercedes customers, and it will gain them. So there is some incentive for price competition, but if it doesn't have an incentive to go down too much, because people's preferences are strong. So that's kind of what we mean by product differentiation in the paper.
What I took away from the paper is when firms have intermediate levels of product differentiation, they really have a choice of flexible versus rigid regimes. What does this mean, and how does this impact a firm's choices?
We assume that every firm has the option of either choosing a flexible or rigid regime. That terminology changed a little bit as the paper evolved, but let's stick to it. But what we find is, what the question is, having these options, which options are you going to actually choose? Which options are optimal? And in the intermediate product differentiation range, we find that it's optimal that for firms, not all of them to choose the same strategy. So we find that it's optimal for one firm to be flexible or not to constrain its output, and for another firm to be rigid and constrain its output. That's the difference.